My name is Nassim Saabs.
Let me ask you a question. Has anything ever happened to you that you couldn't explain? That made you feel sort of foolish when you tried to tell somebody about it? Well, if it has, you have plenty of company, as you'll soon see.
What's going on in Weld County, Colorado with them having a lot of changes and also having the most cattle mutilations in the whole world?
Cattle mutilations are government-sponsored alien operations and have been since they were first started in 1967. Actually, they were probably going on much earlier. And the upshot of that was the glandulars, we allow the aliens to extract glandular secretions from animals, mixing them with their own. In exchange, we'll give them plutonium products for their drive, for their spaceship drives, among making alien elements for them, and they give us the biological weapons. Isn't that a nice, horrible scenario? This kind of stuff is bad news indeed. Part of the talk or the intelligence community, the Nazi group, the World War II Nazi or Hitlerian group, the Fatherland Intelligence Agency trained our CIA, our OSS, which became our CIA, and other intelligence communities predominantly, and are still being employed today, in quote, the federal government today trains Bosnian troops on American soil, and from what I understand, that's totally illegal, and that's another topic. Now, the third part of the talk is the types of aliens. The large gray two large grays that I shot and killed, I can't tell you how ugly they were, and I can never tell you how graphic the stench was. But in the cave there were large cauldrons or tanks. They kind of looked like a big oval cattle feeding tank, but they weren't. They were special, looked like a stainless steel or metallic tank. And they were filled with alien and human body parts, and generally glands and what looked like some kind of blood. Now, I've always been taught that blood after a few minutes starts to congeal, but this was one of these vessels in the melee had tipped over, and all this bloody liquid had spilled out and was a mess, and it was definitely not coagulated. How they did this is anybody's guess. So if we remember anything about cattle mutilations, we might also think that basically the blood in these cattle are totally drained out. There's no blood around, in quote, the murder scene of the cattle. So this might be the way they're doing it. Now, whether this is sponsored by our government or other governments is a good guess. If it were up to me, I'd say yes, we're in the thick of it. We made a pact with the aliens, and therefore we must know what their agenda is, and also the federal government must also further know that if they keep the big lie going, they must be in the thick of it in the worst way, and if that's the case, they're an enemy of gross concern.
They're not just torn, they're surgically cut. There's no sign of blood. Any missing part is never found. There's no sign of a struggle. And sometimes the animals are found in the most awkward positions that it's impossible for them to be in. Heads bent back farther than the bone the neck can actually handle. legs in opposite directions, and it's just impossible for an animal to get like that.
She believes the animals may have been tranquilized before being mutilated.
It appears to me the animal is brought down instantly. I'm hearing about all the cases because many times the rancher just buries the animal or burns the animal. But I marked this out so I can see a pattern here, or look for a pattern. And there seems to be the lower section here to the east, and then it goes northwest. And what's particularly interesting is this line from Lloydminster to St. Walburg. So far, this seems to be a huge concentration, this area up here.
In March of 2008, on a ranch near Lloydminster, Alberta, a prize bison bull named Frank fell victim to the mystery predator.
And my dad had fed them bulls 2 days prior, and Frank was alive and well. So something unusual happened there.
Bison rancher Lee Benoit had never before seen an animal killed in this way.
Sex organs were all cored right out, and his gut was split right down the middle. Precision cut too, like it wasn't somebody with a hunting knife or anything like that. It was a very skilled cut.
The bizarre circumstances surrounding this killing deepened his suspicions.
Scavengers hadn't gone near him. It was a little bit odd. There was no tracks, no tire tracks, no footprints of any kind anywhere near him.
Deepening the mystery, the snow where the animal had fallen mysteriously melted and refroze into an odd-shaped pattern, much like a crop circle. It's the only trace left behind by whatever unidentified predator is committing these monstrous acts. Dr. Stephen Kent has studied the cattle killing phenomenon and discovered that other ranchers have reported dead vegetation, indicating some kind of craft paid a visit to the mutilation site.
Often in or near where these dead carcasses appeared, there were markings that almost appeared as if they were footpads, if something had landed. Some cases there'd be burned grass of various sizes that people thought could have been, in simple terms, exhaust of some sort. So all these things suggested that maybe a UFO landed.
Some incidents suggest that the killers have the ability to lift and move its half-ton victims.
One cow in particular was flipped over. The underside of her hide had a spiral pattern in her hair, and it indicated that she was spun at high speed.
Dr. Kent, while skeptical of the UFO theory, believes ranchers are not the kind of people who exaggerate.
Hardworking, decent folks who want to earn money, often in very difficult business. So I'd be very surprised if most ranchers would get involved in any kind of embellishments. They're just trying to figure out what's happened.
I checked for broken bones. I couldn't find anything. I looked for bullet wounds. I did find some strange, unusual slits in the hide in shaved areas. There was sporadic shaving on him.
Returning to the exact location of the bison's death, she found evidence that a large heat source had been present.
The only ice we found in that entire field was a circle around where the carcass had been originally found, and it measured 35 feet in diameter.
The large circle of ice had refrozen in an odd pattern. It was the only trace left behind by the killers.
There's bizarre circumstances around this. The field was full of snow. It's a quarter section. There was no tracks coming in or out. There's 14 other bulls, and this guy was 1,780 pounds, and there was giants in that field. There's no way anyone could get near. So what happened?
Barb Campbell's investigation is making progress. The shaved hair found on the dead bison reveals traces of a chemical that should not have been there.
What I have here.
She takes the lab results to the rancher Lee Benoit.
And there was a chemical substance on there, 3-hydroxyanthranilic acid, 3-HAA.
Okay.
And we don't know why it's there.
This chemical is related to tryptophan, which may be used as a sedative.
Now, in Utah, there was a heifer that was mutilated, and when they did tests on her, they found tryptophan in her, which suggested that she was quite possibly euthanized before she was mutilated.
Dr. Nick Nation believes that so-called cattle mutilation is a normal part of nature.
Quite frankly, UFOs and satanic cults don't figure at all in the way I look at these things.
Sure, the atomic testing was conducted predominantly in case we had to be prepared in using atomic warfare to fight alien influence, and they needed a cover story, so this was the Russians and the Cold War and everything was just a perfect cover story. Although it later became more than a cover story, as we all know. These particular photographs also show small dots and dashes, as I would say, and all of them have been confirmed. Now this black system here in the atomic cloud is actually time being ripped up, of course the atmosphere and the clouds and everything, and then time being warped by the initial blast itself, and that's by neutrinos going through and ionizing space, ionizing the atmosphere and whatnot, but exceeding the speed of light, so you produce an antimatter background and you get total blackness.
I'm going to sum up this talk and mention an overview of the alien agenda. The alien agenda is completely decimate the planet, to take the remaining human subjects as slaves, and the aliens would use this planet for their own means. Number one, this cannot be allowed to happen. The world takeover plans of the New World Order, a direct carbon copy blueprint from Adolf Hitler's routine of 1933 to 1938, must not be allowed to happen. That includes the name, the New World Order. That was purposely used, folks, because most of us have been lazy. We have not read our history, and I'm talking to you because I'm one of them. Now, all this alien thing is fine, except for one thing. The alien takeover is a serious threat. Kept totally out of the public view, off the surface, I'm sure the underground bases, without question, are being used as a place to house alien takeover. Alien takeover means the implementation of a one-world government. Direct opposite of constitutional law. Direct opposite of freedom of choice, freedom of religion, other freedoms that go with it. Right to bear arms.
Punitive. It's very reminiscent of early Nazi days with Adolf Hitler. In fact, New World Order was taken from his manifesto, so to speak, in 1933. He actually said, "We will form a New World Order."
One of them did this. All I remember is that he just kind of waved his hand in front of his chest, and the next thing I know, this blue beam hit me and just literally opened me up like a fish, and burnt my fingers right off of me. And it was some form of electrical force, because the kind of like being hit by a lightning bolt burned all my toenails off of me. Completely crispy crittered my left foot, burnt the shoe right off of me. All I remember is the smoking remains, and I'm still conscious, but in and out of, I didn't remember much.
Well, that's all, folks. I think I better leave some time for Al Bailey. And I better munch a sandwich before I become an alien.
Anyway, thank you.
It's been a real pleasure.